Okay, hi. Sorry I'm late. Yeah, one of my sons was over at the house visiting. You know, you get to chatting and you get to hanging out, and it's important stuff. It's important stuff. So, sorry I'm a few minutes late here, but welcome aboard. How you doing? I did the 2 pages yesterday. I was feeling in a really creative energy. I posted 4 things on social media, and then I sat down to do the 2 pages yesterday. Now, I'll show you them in the camera in a second, but this is the. I'll just do it now. I'll do it this way. Hi, Linda. Welcome aboard. Okay, so here is the 2 pages that I did yesterday, and I'll walk you through some of the way that I went about putting together these images. I'm trying to show. It doesn't really pick it up in camera, but there's tissue paper in there. There's Indian manganese paper in there, which is like a paper made out of grass. There's printed images on paper in there, like jelly plating, and then I do the composition. I'll lay these out, and then I'll do the composition on top. If you watched yesterday's video, you saw a process of it when I did this image. And I got most of this image laid out. I just didn't do the putting in the black. Putting in the black line art. So started with this one here. Did that about half an hour before I streamed, and then got right into this guy. So how that went? The first one, the hot air balloon crash. I laid all the text in on that, and built up a little bit of story about it relating to a dream about being in a balloon that was going to crash to the ground. And so this was the first one. Now I also have posted a couple of my doodle pages. I don't know if I showed these yet or not. This is what I do sitting, when the sermon's going on in church, and I sit down and draw whatever it is he's talking about. So that I put those up yesterday as well, but I posted those for the public. Those are just on the Patreon. I only put the Sunday doodles on the Patreon. So here's the first one, hot air balloon crash, and here is the second one, anguish. And I showed you the original art for both of these. And so anguish is actually the 22nd story page since the start of this year. So I'm ahead of the curve right now. I guess maybe a few days off, maybe. Who knows? But good fun. Good fun. This piece, it tells a story, okay? And this is a thing about that I've talked about before with storytelling. Storytelling doesn't always have to be elaborate. It doesn't always have to be this flourishing prose, or it doesn't have to be this, very authorial, resounding voice that you're writing with. Sometimes we can tell a story with a word. Sometimes we can tell a story in the context of how I work. It's not just the word itself, but it's a word with an image. And so that fusion of those two elements, which is what I talk about all the time, and how I go about storytelling is as a writer artist. One word with a strong enough image can convey far more than just the word, and sometimes the simplicity of a single word like anguish or something like that allows you to tell the story as a reader. And so this still fits, in my opinion, within the parameters of a single page story. It's a single page, it's a single word. I did a page last year called Run, and it's got it's got 8 or 9 people running, and they're dispersing like it's a crowd spilling out of a place. And the suggested idea, because a lot of these times I'm working from an idea suggested from somebody, the suggested idea for that page was one panel, one image, one word. Run is what I did. So, but that leads the reader to then suppose in their head, what are they running from? Why are they running? Where are they coming from? Who are these people? What is going on to install this sense of panic? And so there's a greater story there that's to be discovered. Sometimes the suggestion of story, or sometimes story in its simplicity, enables the reader's imagination to go off, and to fill in all of that story. So it's less incumbent upon us to have all the specifics of that story readily laid out. Sometimes it's more encouraging for the reader to have to fill all that in. So, yeah, that's the idea behind something like Anguish. Okay, so I've got some paper here, and I'm gonna kick it out I'm gonna kick the camera over here in a second here, and I'm gonna show you some stuff. Lots and lots of fun stuff. Okay, so here's the overhead. All right, and just give me a second here. I'm gonna move the camera over, and get this centered better on the. There we go. Okay, so we'll get this moved over in just a second. I've got some things to show you, some materials that we can use in order to incorporate into our. I got some of these things in the mail that were sent to me, and we'll put some of this jazz in what we're going to do today. There you are. Now you're up and running. And to start the program up. There we are, and we'll move the other way. There you go. See more. Okay, so I've got the camera figured out now that I can do this with it. Yay! Okay, so this is like a napkin type thing here, right? With this paisley print. I don't know if that's paisley or not. You have to bear with me. And some music sheets, from songbooks. And again, this is tissue material and another tissue material. And these are clearly not manually printed, but these are clearly machine printed. It looks like, anyways. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not. This is like a paper bag from when you go to the grocery store. This is the material like the manganese grass paper and tissue paper that has musical jazz on it. And then this is paper that I've jelly plated on. Excuse me. More of a waxy paper. And so there's all kinds of stuff that we can use. And so the challenge of stuff like this, I'm going to hold this up and give my old Kamarooski a second to pull out on that. Just a sec. So we get that zoom moving in there. There we go. So there it is. So you can see some of this little patterning, some of these little differentiations in the surface, and that is the paper underneath. And I like this stuff. I like the character that having a piece of paper in there, it just gives something for the reader to go, what is that? And sometimes those are the little moments, those are the little things that make it keep the viewer's attention for just a moment longer. And a lot of benefit to that. There we go. Just get this set up a little bit more. Okay, so all right, so I've got these papers. I've got some matte medium, and I've got some white gesso, and I've got some mark making tools and the like. And so we'll just walk through putting together today's suggestion. So if anybody has one-page story ideas to suggest, if anybody has prompt words, stuff like that they want to throw at me, I always leave that open for people to do so. I tend not to shy away from it. It just takes me a while to get through them all. but feel free to do so. I love it. I like the different random story points that people throw at me, and they get wild. I tease one friend, Jim, who comes to the stream here. Jim's previous suggestion was a horse playing guitar, riding a bicycle on the edge of a black hole. So, and we did it. We did a story of that, and that's in. If you could roll back through the Instagram or the Facebook, eventually you'll come across it. I think Instagram's easier to scroll back through. Okay, so we've got this here. I've got some water off to the side. Don't look, it's dirty water. Don't look. Hey, Jim, I was just talking about you. Welcome aboard, sir. Hi there. And then I've got a brush here. So taking these random bits of paper here and some of this stuff, I think I might utilize this in a way so that these images peek through. All right, so we'll just set that over here just for, well, let's just set it over there for a second. And we'll tear off a piece of this. Now, there's no preciousness in me about this. There just isn't. I don't have a presupposed plan. I don't, well, I'm only going to use this in this way. I don't do any of that jazz. I just get down to it. So there was craft paper, I think, or paper bag in there. Yeah, there's some paper bag. So we'll get that in there. Okay, so we've got some of this tissue paper here. We've got these different bits. And just tear some of this down a little bit. And we're going to put this into the surface before I start working on the mixed media. Now, yesterday's piece was, let's talk about all the things that are in there. There's white gesso. There is matte medium, of course. There's these different papers. There's watercolor. There's pencil crayon. There's these little old stubby pencil crayons that'll draw some composition with. There is a tiny bit of Posca pen that I did at the end of it all. And, you know, just all kinds of whatnot that goes largely into this surface, the modulated surface that gives us, maybe the other one shows up better. Yeah, see here, right here, this piece of information, washes out, that you can see poking through here, or the musical notes you can see poking through here. And if you look in the scanned images, you'll see these things pop through more. Now, in this one, where the lettering is going over top, underneath between that S and the H, you can see the differentiation in paper surface. And you can see where, you know, while I'm painting the image and putting the image down as a flat image right over top of everything else, doesn't matter what the surface of it is, sometimes there's those little differentiations, those little imperfections that poke through. And to me, that's a lot of fun. So in Hot Air Balloon here, between the second and third piece of text, you can see these random geometric patterns that are poking through from a piece of paper that's in the subsurface. There's music notes to the left ear of our guy, or his right ear, I guess. There's music notes on the other side of his head as well. So these are some of these other papers that are peeking through. And that's fun in the sun. So, okay, so I've got two ways that I put this down. I'll either use a matte medium. Gel medium, you know, you get your glossy business and lots of monkeying on the surface. A matte medium tends to be flat and dull. So where's my extent of my working area? Okay, so we're going to do one right here. Now, there's not a lot of pre-planning or preciousness about this. I get some matte medium down. I put down what's going on to the surface, and I brush the matte medium over. Done. And I just lay that out through through the surface of the paper and get some coverage here. There's no expectation of uniformity. There's no expectation of necessity of balance. You can hopefully see that this piece of paper, along with the brushes here, has ridged up because it didn't sit perfectly flat as I put this down. I can smooth that out. Yes, I can. Am I gonna? No, I'm not. And the reason I'm not is because that's the stuff that makes me giggle in the schoolyard. You know, those are the interesting elements that afford us opportunities. You know, tissue paper, just don't be too concerned when you're placing your tissue paper down. Let it ridge, let it fold over. If it's going to, it's going to. Just try to make sure that you've got enough consistent medium or whatever it is, gesso, whatever it is that you're putting it down with, that it's going to be properly adhered. Because you don't want pockets of air underneath or anything like that that's going to eventually separate and pull your piece apart. That's not going to do you any good. I got this paper going over top of these other two. Again, why not, right? So thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope everybody's having a good day. And sort of getting right down to business. I made a note today. I posted on the Makers site today about how I do tend to work really fast and wet, and it may at first appear a little bit chaotic. It's chaotic. It just is. But there's a immediacy to it. There's a comfort in letting abandon through the door. You know, sometimes if you overthink whatever you're working on, you're going to get in your own way. You know, some people are very big planners, and planners are fine. I get, that people need to plan. When you see somebody who looks like they're just reckless abandon, it doesn't mean that they don't have a plan. It just means that it just appears a little more chaotic. So I've got all this random coverage spread throughout here. Now, if I leave the matte medium uncovered, okay, and then certain things are going to utilize it as a resist. There are going to be certain watercolors, inks, are going to use it like a resist. So here's some consideration I need to have, almost like a plan, as I'm putting this stuff down. So Riri says, "I'll grab that thumbnail, some serious stuff. Yipes." Okay, so here we've got the start of our composition. Okay, and so with this, it's going to allow us the ability to have some intro. Oh, I didn't put that. I thought that guy was good. Okay, I have way too much medium. That's all right. So what this is going to allow us is to have all kinds of interesting potential opportunities of little pieces of things peeking through whatever it is that we're going to put down on this. I say whatever it is because I have not looked in the book yet. Okay, so this is where we'll start. I was going to do two today during the stream, but let's at least get at least one going. Excuse me. And then I've got this that I'm going to add in as well. But I'm going to start putting the composition in before I take a piece of this off, because I want to place it in such a way as you can see it. So, and thank you again for Dee Dee, and then I've got some things from Stamp Swap, and I've got some things from a guy I know named Gerald, nice guy. So thank you for some of these things that have been coming in, and I appreciate that. I really like that paper, Gerald. The manganese paper. Used to have shops here where you could go and buy all kinds of paper, like clearly craft stores. And we don't have a lot of those in downtown London anymore. Okay. Miriam says that she has COVID. Oh, for goodness sakes, Miriam, please feel better. We're not sure if it might have been COVID or not. We know that I had it was clearly all the symptoms of pneumonia from Christmas on, and we're not sure. Oh, my camera got tilted by myself. If it might have been COVID, because we just didn't even think to check. We just took care of it like it was, symptomatically pneumonia. So, and I got pneumonia. All right, so now I've got some gesso on here, and so I'm just giving a bit of a light brushing. So when I do that, you can see all this texture jump through, right? And looking forward to this. Jim says, shameless self-promotion. I've got a new Hey Man, how's your movie going? With Scott Circlin tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard. And I got a video I have to send to Scott myself. Scott Circlin is one of the Artcasters, and the Artcasters are about to have their 400th episode of broadcasting. And it was Scott Circlin that brought me into the online community. It was Scott Circlin that sort of said, hey, you should, get involved in some of this. So thank you. I'm always going to be very thankful for Scott and the Artcasters guys for making me the first people that made me feel welcome in the world of the interwebs. World of the interweb. Okay, so this is just a sort of light brushing over the entirety of the surface to cut down the resist of that matte medium, right? We'll get more into it. We'll get more into it as we go. Riri says, I was wondering why you're going on at 10 p.m. because he's in the California. Riri. He's one of them California guys, the ones that got to get on the 2 and they got to go over to 104 so they can do the turnstile at San Dimas, and then they're right on the way home, man. Unless you want to stop off at the beach, and all you got to do to get on there is you just jump onto the 8 and you just try to get past those orange vendor guys that are coming right to your car window. And then you get off on a turnpike that takes you down to the 180, and then you're right there in surf territory. That's my Californian. All right. Okay, so what do we do today? Let's take a look at the book. Trying to keep up with stuff. Still got some things that I'm catching up on in the Book of Tricks. Make sure I'm not missing stuff. Shameless self-promoter, says Miriam Butchin. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming and joining. Miriam, I hope you're resting, and please feel better. Don't feel you have any obligations to anything and anybody right now that won't understand that, hey, guess what? You've got COVID. Give the woman a break. There is an awful lot of expectation that we put upon ourselves when we're feeling sick. It sometimes makes us feel like, oh, I'm letting everything down and the world's going to end without me. Making sure all the caps are on the markers. It's not the case. We'll get by. We want you to feel better. Okay. Excitement of grown men over a Happy Meal. And this is from our friend Rachel. I'll type it into the chat. I'll put it up there. right, look at me typing like I'm 1,000 years old. So there's today's suggestion. I'll put that up in a second. Jim says he's in West Covina. Jim, are you one of those blondes that rolls away on the coast, Jim? I'm near Pasadena, 20 miles from Los Angeles. In kilometers, that's 1,000 miles. San Dimas is 5 miles from Jim's house. Isn't that great? Fantastic. Okay, thinking of doing, Riri says, I'm thinking of doing a mixed media canvas with Janet Scavenger Hunt prompts. There are things that you can get now. Here's an idea to consider. You can either do a stretch canvas, or you can do, a prepared, store-bought little stretch canvas. They're of course of different sizes. You can do rolled canvas, staple it to your wall, and do whatever you do on the surface there, and then make sure you leave a nice lip of 4 inches so that you can stretch it around the stretcher made to fit the size of your image. Another way is at places like Walmart and superstores of the similar kind, and department stores. I noticed that a number of them are selling block pads with canvas sheets, very similar to cardstock papers or watercolor papers. They're selling canvas sheets. So pre-treated sheets of canvas material for you to work on. Take a look into those sort of things. There's some really cool opportunities that it might give you. Thank you, Christopher Miriam says. No obligation, want to be here. Oh, I love that you're here. That's so nice, yeah. Okay, this is today's suggestion for me to work from. This is where we're going. So I got a silly idea that I'm going to start with. So, and Riri says, you're way down there, Jim. Hey, Yolanda's joined us. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Chico would be way up there. There you go. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming out. So this is the prepared surface that I've got here. It has not dried yet, he says, with paint on his hand now. But that is okay. I'm going to adjust this camera just a little bit. There you go. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit as well, just to get us right in there. Just going to get right in there, pal. Look at that. Look at how Chris has figured out how to make things focus. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me as I learn more and more about the ins and outs of tools in order to get all this working. Okay, so here is our narrative. And the narrative is the excitement. Let's use a different one that you can see. The excitement of grown men over a Happy Meal. Yeah, just making sure I got it right. And this is Rachel that suggested this. Okay, so there is our suggested idea. So I think that what I'm going to do, just to start things off, is break right into putting down some of the composition on the page. And having modified the surface with these little pieces of information, different tissue papers, there's the grass paper, there's paper bag, there's what looks like, I think I described it as like a printed tissue. And excuse me, I don't know why, I got a frog in my throat today and I left my drink over there. I'll grab it in a second. So I've got all these things placed in there. Okay, and the amount of them that I allow to show through as I'm going on with the composition is up to me. And I'm going to play with that just a little bit, but I'm also going to utilize some of the basic, Remi's like, let's go. I'm going to utilize some of the basic composition to allow those colors, like in the tan value here, or the umber value here, to peek through. And no matter what I put over top, I want to allow some of this differentiation in order to, one, I always say, add complexity to the image, but also there is a little bit of, what is that? How'd they do that? business that goes on in this, right? So, okay, so right off the hop, I'm going to do some dudes. Maybe I'll use, what's your name? This guy, is he? Yeah, he's a little softer than the other one I had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, I got my little source images here that are kicked up on my little tablet. This is what I get to work from. I'm not allowed to blow these up because when I blow them up, I get too caught up in the imagery and want to specifically blah, blah, blah. But we're going to use some of those little images and start to build and construct a narrative, because honestly, there's a story in everything, right? And just looking at a couple of images will give us whatever instigation we might need in order to pull a narrative from that. Sound theory? Let's find out. So, putting these guys in their kit, the thing that I see when we see these pictures of all these guys decked out in all their military, stuff, is what I see is guys, passing the time between whatever action-oriented things are going on in the world by talking about, Bob, when's the first time you got kissed there? Well, it's awfully personal there, Dave. Check your six. I don't know. That's military talk that I don't understand what it means. I think it means look that way, or 6 o'clock is on a clock. Well, it was a lovely lady named Loretta, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Whatever their conversations are, they're relatively innocuous because they're going to be passing the time, right? And so in that passing of the time, we're going to see fun little engagements and interactions. There's a funny bit by David Mitchell, and it's not David Mitchell, it's Mitchell and Webb, these two comedians that had a number of TV shows in Britain. And it's two Nazi guys, and these two Nazi guys that are in their uniforms are, one has this empathetic revelation that, I've been thinking a lot about our outfits, and they talk about the black and the rather sharp cut of them, and there's a lot of skulls on our gear, and there's an awful lot of us that are just kind of nasty characters. And so it's just this revelation for this character that they might be the bad guys in this conflict. The way it goes about is so funny because it's these two guys talking about, have you noticed that? It just comes off as ridiculous. But it makes you wonder, did anybody ever have a conversation like that in that context? So when I see, ever since having seen that, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I often wonder what conversations people have in their own time. And you can reflect back on whatever job site involvements you might have had in some place or so on and so forth, where, you're cleaning out the pet cages at the pet store and, doing something that's not the most enjoyable process. So you're talking about whatever it is in order to keep things moving along. You find out all kinds of tidbits about the person that you're working with potentially being, you never know. That's what I'm saying. I worked with a guy when I was a teenager who told me this random story one day at the workplace that I thought was just, you watch too much Law and Order, but. And then I got brought into the police station 2 years later and questioned about it because it was real. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy committed these robberies. What? That was real? I thought he was just kind of a weird guy making things up. And it turned out, no, he was just getting something off his chest to somebody that maybe he didn't think would believe him. So, anyways. We've all got these moments. So here's our first character, and then we'll draw a couple of more. And so the idea here is, Yolanda says, you were an accessory after the fact. Yeah, the other guy that I worked with, that he also regaled with this information. We were talking outside of work one day, and I'm like, he's just kind of weird. He tells you some weird stuff. And so when he told the same thing to the other guy reported him because he just took it. No, he's weird enough that he could have done that. So he reported him. It turned out to be true. And I got brought in because he said, yeah, I think he told Chris too. So he told a lot of people. So, yeah. Miriam says he's on probation now. No, he's in prison now. He's probably still there. This was, well, maybe not. Let's see. This would have been about, my oldest is 30. Yeah, 30 years. He could be out now. Terrible to laugh about. He might be in my stream. But just what a situation. Okay, so with the drawing of the guys, you can see already that there's this piece of paper that runs through two of the characters. And there's no part of me that is making any allowance whatsoever for these interfering papers. And the reason that I'm doing that is that the key piece of import that I'm always trying to get across to people when doing things like, the one-page stories that I do, or any illustration for that matter, or narrative for that matter, this stuff isn't important. The flourish, the little bits of business, the how we go about creating our images, that's not important. What's important is storytelling that we're putting down on paper here. And that's the part that we're trying to make come across to the reader, the key pieces of information that are aspects to the story, that have something to do with the story. Was that guy Paul Pate? Jim says. No, that was a different thing. Paul's a nice guy. I'm being silly for those who know Paul. That's exciting about your stream tomorrow, Jim. 10 p.m. EST, 7 p.m. PST. Hey, man, how's your movie going? Jim Luan talks about his animated film that he's doing, that he is flying on, by the way, and he is just getting tons of it done. But he's animating his own feature film. He's done a ton of them. If you haven't checked out Jim Luan's channel, look up the spelling and the name that you see in the chat. For those of you that are here outside of the chat, it's JimLujan. And you can see for free on his YouTube channel his animated films. He's got tons of shorts. He's got a couple of them. They're all tied together as motion picture length things. But this is the first sit down, draw a motion picture that Jim has done to be broadcast as one item. So if you want some fun for your afternoon, see some really interesting characterization that Jim does of all the people that are in this world that he's been building across all these projects. I highly, highly, highly recommend his films. For that matter, anybody that's in the chat or in the stream here, or please take a look at what they're doing, because we're all doing something on some level. So this is just a little nub of a pencil that I'm using here, a pencil crayon or a colored pencil for you Americans. And all I'm putting in here is basic lines and shapes and composition for these characters. And as I presented so far in the things we're talking about, these. So what's been the happiest meal you've ever eaten? This guy says. What do you mean, like a happy meal? No, like the meal that makes you happy. Just having these three characters side by side, And having this as our suggestion up above enables us to start to immediately craft a narrative. You got a couple of people standing together, they're chatting about something. What are they chatting about? What's the suggestion? That's one way that we can approach a story. Another way is to, to go out of my way to draw the most recognizable, McDonald's, and for people salivating over their children's meals from the children's menu. I know a lot of adults that actually order from that menu. So there's different ways that we can approach the same thing. It really is just a case of where we take things, where the choices that we ourselves make. Okay, so I've got these guys down. Now, this is my palette. It's the Zorn palette that is what I'm using here in watercolor, from Watercolor Tubes. Okay, now I've got an extra yellow here, but there is your ochre, there's your vermilion for the red, there's an umber for the, it's an umber, and then there's a for the brown, and there's a Prussian blue here. And Yolanda says, "Oh, Happy Meal. I thought you said Happy Meal." Happy Meal. And then I've got a white and a black. That you can see I haven't even touched the black yet, having already done 2 images. This is where I've put down some gesso on this this plexi fiberglass surface here that I use as a palette. So I've already got this palette picked out, and so this palette enables me to have the variety that the Zorn palette. Zorn is a guy who came up with the idea that this is the primary palette that many masters have used historically. So this is a Zorn palette is a lot of the primary colors that you can find in a lot of Caravaggio's compositions. I'll show you. Here is a study that I did from looking at a Leonardo, and I tried in this to limit my entire palette to just, is it really washed out? Maybe I'll turn off this one light for a second and see if that makes it any better. There it is. Okay. Oh, that's better. And it's the sheen. There's a sheen on the surface. It's sort of washing it out. Yolanda says, "My friend is here. I have to go. Have fun, everyone. Have a great day, Yolanda." So this is the approach that this is a study I did from that, and using a really limited palette, and you can still get a really wonderful range of values. So anyhow, so this is what I'll be using for this. And so when I'm using greens, when you're seeing green paint and stuff, that's green that's being manufactured from these values. Yolanda says, "I tried to do some jelly plating with the Zorn palette, and I wasn't crazy with my results." I think that'd be really challenging because you'd have to continually be mixing enough values to do that. And, that but it could work. It's just you got to like the colors. Miriam says, "I use that on my gouache illustrations." Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so I've got my my little palette mixed up here, and I've got some watercolor on top of it. And so all I'm going to do is to just put just like a light little base amounts of pigment on these guys. Now you can see already that there's resists in certain spots. See the white area, the lighter area right here? That is matte medium peeking through and making the color resist adhering to that surface. That's fun. Now, if you see a really dark spot, that is an area that doesn't have any matte medium or gesso on it at all. And so the paper is really grabbing a hold of that watercolor that you're putting down. And like you see right here on that arm, there's no medium on that. There's no gesso on that. So that's fine. We'll be okay. We'll be all right with that. So, so I got a base color on these guys, and I'm just going to throw in a couple little bits and bobs of information, and we'll just whatever. It's nonsensical stuff that just gives a little context to the characters. It puts them in a place just to have, even if it's abstract geometric shapes, it puts them somewhere so they're not just floating in the air. All right, so now I'm going to take some of this Prussian blue and just a couple little washes of value in that background just to separate them. Put them in the foreground a little bit and just bump them off of the area around them. And again, really washed out value, and they'll be pooling as well because of the pigment moving to the outside extremis of where the water color sits on top of the medium applied paper. So thank you as well, by the way, to everybody that saw yesterday's pages on the Makers group. I haven't really posted anything there, largely because I don't want to be that guy. Hey, everybody look at me all the time. But I posted today, and I appreciate very much positive response that people were very nice. So sold 175 paintings. Oh. It's not about that in my book. Okay, so here's another fun thing I'm trying to put across to you. There is this piece of paper for the music sheet that is quite a bit different than the rest of the surface around it. The thin papers that are applied, or the base paper that is the foundation for the image. But so you can see, hopefully, ideally, let me zoom in on it, see if I can make that pop up a little bit more. By the way, so I could turn you down. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're the problem. There, you make the letter. Okay, so in this image here, there's this little ribbon of a line, just this corner right here, that sits beside this guy's head. And the reason that is like that is that is the edge of this piece of paper. So doing these base little amounts of application here have allowed some of these things to happen. Change my brightness in here. Is that easier to see? Is that better for everybody? I think that might make it a little bit clearer. And then now let's our focus should be better here. Another way. It's reversed. I got it reversed. There we go. Okay, so here is where we're working, and let's continue on with this. So with Makers encourage you to self-promote. Hey, Jim, this group will suit you. Yeah. Well, I thought it was mixed media stuff. Jim's an animator. I mean, his illustration and stuff, I guess. But anyways, okay, so we've got our first panel, our first image down. We're introducing our idea into our story here, and we are, in general, getting the whole thing started off. So now I'm going to pull back out, move you out of the way, and so here's the rest of our image, okay? Now, with that in mind, the next panel, we want to continue the conveyance of story. Now, Jim says, got to head out. And good seeing everybody. Chris, hope your day is great. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, so the next panel, we want to continue this action. So we can do it a couple ways. We can have, so here's the presentation and idea, and these two engaging on the idea of happiest meal. Okay. And in this panel, I can pull in tighter on one of their faces saying, my happiest meal was this. Yeah, and so that can be our second story point. But I have an idea for a third story point right along here of characters running across the screen, as though our characters that we've introduced here are now running off to get themselves the thing that they've been talking about. So I think that's how we're going to pursue this narratively. Right in the garbage. Yeah. Sorry. I'm impressing nobody more than myself. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, is that we're going to jump in on this idea that these guys are, the soldier guys are now saying, well, there's the one I like the most. And you guys feel like going to get some of that? Yeah! So off they all go. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a couple faces, squinty eyes. They're out in the dust, wherever they might be. So I'm going to draw these guys in, rugged-looking fellas, and then we're going to put this third story element in. That's my objective for continuing this narrative. Now, the fourth part of this narrative would be, here's these guys skippla-doodling across our central image. And of course, the payoff for it all is, biting into their hamburgers or playing with the toys or, whatever established behaviors would people do when they're getting their Happy Meals. And for those that don't know, what the Happy Meal references towards is in North America here, or probably internationally, the little meals that they prepare in child proportions or small little proportions of a little tiny hamburger and little French fries and things like that. They call them Happy Meals, and they put them in these ornately decorated boxes with mazes and things like that on them. I think they still have it like this. I haven't gone to McDonald's in some time, so. The kids, they get a toy inside and they play with it, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of excitement. I remember in the 70s, you used to always have these pencil toppers, these little plastic people who always had their hands out like this. And you would put the pencil up underneath and plug it in from the bottom. And you'd have all these, animated characters from the Jungle Book or I think, I'm trying to think, Jungle Book's the only thing that comes to mind. Merrick says, same thing here. Happy Meals in a box. You got to figure it's an international. It's the same thing across the world. They're not going to change it too much. There is some sort of cultural adaptation that the big chain stores do when they go to different countries. That you can't go in Philadelphia and go to McDonald's and order borscht, but you can in Russia. Are they still in Russia? I don't even know. Companies virtue signaling when the Russians attack Ukraine and pulling their businesses out of the. I'm surprised by that because Corporate monsters, they want their money. Num, 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 num. But you never know. Okay, so here's a close-up on this guy right here. And here he is. Let's give him a little talkie thing on his neck. And then I'm looking here and looking for some of these shapes that I put down in the smaller image. I want to make sure that I'm replicating those as I transfer them up to this larger image so that it's more easily identifiable that this is this cat. And I'm going to draw this cat right beside him. See, there you go. Miriam says, we don't have cheeseburgers, though. That's because it's not kosher. Well, there you go. See, that's what we're talking about. And then McDonald's is like, oh, we're not getting any of them cheese sales over there. Don't worry, sir. In this country, in this other country, that's all they eat is cheese. Good thinking, Johnson. Load more cheese up in those trucks and send them there. Tear down some more of the rainforest while you're at it. Ooh, snap. So, okay, so here is, now we can get a little more interesting with the details that are in the helmet and so on and so forth when we go into that close-up shot. But we're not overly worried about that in this moment. What we're more interested in is clear. Just let's get all these beats down and get on to the next stage in our storytelling. So I'm going to put some of this additional information here as our camera is panned in on this guy, and he gives his, well, my favorite Happy Meal had the chicken nuggets in it, or whatever he's saying. That, or we can just have him say, Johnson, get the boys together and tell them we're going on a mission. We're going on a recon, whatever it is. I'm not a video game guy either, so I haven't learned by default all kinds of militaristic vernacular because that they espouse in a lot of these little shoot 'em up games, and that has everything to do with the fact that I don't play those things. Miriam says, "Sure, I'm gonna go now. I'll catch up later. Thank you very much for hanging out, Miriam. Appreciate that, and I hope you feel better." Okay, so here we are with our second dude, and he's got more of a rounded helmet to him. And we'll give him his. Let's give him a kind of a vibe. I didn't really give enough details in here. Let's put some shape to that face and push some shadows a little bit. Really simplified this one. Okay, so let's It's a little, I don't know if it's a visor or if it's just an added. A strap. It might be a strap thing. Could be that. Okay, so here's our second guy. Different face shape to him. Let's give him some good shadow in relationship to the same shadow that's affecting him, which tells us things like there's going to be shadow on this side of the helmet, and there's going to be shadow on this side of the helmet, right? And then there's this shadow here. Anyhow, we'll get more into this as we get there. So here's the second guy, and he's going to respond to our fella in charge, who says, "Get the boys gathered together. We're going on a recon." In actuality, they're going to a place that serves their happiest meal. Excuse me. All right. So here he is. Now this guy's shoulder, and his shoulder drops below where this line does, so that we don't have these two people running into one another. But because this character is in the foreground, it tells us a spatial reference to the fact that not only is this person slightly smaller, but this person overlaps him
gives us that relationship in space, right? And it's the same as this one, just a slight adjustment to the camera, right, or a viewpoint. So he's got some kind of doodah on his chest, give him that strap. So, you know, we're getting there. I mean, you got to give him 2 straps. You got one, he's got 2. Okay, so here's our second guy. So even though these lines of action lead us off the page, if I do something like this, where I've got this shoulder and I have these lines and these emphasis points that keep drawing the eye like so, okay, as long as I've got a little bit more emphasis on this, this is a subconscious thing. So as you're reading, okay, we'll follow the motion of it. What's happening here is that it moves across and then follows these lines on a subliminal level that makes your eye go here and down to here. And that's my sneaky little business there, suckers. Okay, so, oh, hold on, I've got my phone beeping. Give me 1 sec, sorry. Oh, okay, we're good. I have a sensor in my phone that reads the sensor that's in my arm to keep on top of I'm type 1 diabetic. And if I leave it across the room or someplace near but far, it cries and says, "You're not paying attention to me." So that's what just happened. Okay, I also got my cup. All right, so we've got these 2 parts laid out, and in the central panel that I told you my intention was for is to take this group of cats that are up here, and these 2 cats, they're also over here, and because I'm drawing your eye with these little subversively tucked in their lines to make the direction move like this through the page. So now I'm going to draw in a bunch of these guys as though they're sneaking their way across our page. Now, I don't need a panel for this. I could put panels around here if I feel compelled to do so. But these guys, I don't need a panel for them. Well, why don't I before I just jump ahead, let's get some of this green on here. So we'll pull some of that yellow out and put it with that Prussian blue. This looks like kind of like an olive, cross between an olive and a phthalocyanine green. Phthalocyanine is a chemical composition of a pigment, but it's very similar to like a sap green, which is my favorite color. Okay, and I believe I put that base value in the hats as well. So we'll get that up there. Not too precious about it right now. We're going to pull some of it out. We're going to push some of it back. We're just getting it down just to make it a little more understanding about where things are going in relationship to each other. More for you than me. Okay, so actually, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a soft application of this vermilion through here, just to push back that white, just to flatten that down just a little bit. Okay, so now we've got those 2 in, and then let's draw a bunch of dudes moving across the page to the place that sells the happy sandwiches. So to me, that is fun and silly enough. Just working them up as basic shapes here. You know, not too caught up in everything being perfectly representative of all the little bits and bobs that they've got over them. Again, we're trying to tell a story. And as long as we're servicing the story with the images that we're putting down, we're getting there. We're getting some stuff happening there. So here's our guy. Move that helmet up a little bit. So here's our first character. Now I'm going to come in a minute with the gesso, and I'm going to cut him out. And I'll show you what I mean by that. But first I want to get some more of the guys, like the crew. And in that way, it'll help, to understand that there's a group of these guys moving across. And that repetitive action of people walking actually implies action of people moving through space. So, and then after that, I'll get into showing you cutting out the image. And I'll do the big punchline here after. How's that sound? Sounds great, Chris. Oh, I'm glad you like it. If anybody has any thoughts or any questions, why do you do it that way? What's wrong with you? Yeah. Whatever it is, feel free to ask. I'm down with the bad sounds. I'll answer you as best I can. Made this guy's leg look a little bit too clunky here. It's because his head's too big and his shoulders too broad. There we go. So there's our second guy, and let's put this third guy. Let's have a little bit of overlap here so that you realize that it's not the same repeated dude over and over again, but they're actually moving as a group. And then we'll put their slightly larger guy here, who's side to side with this fella. And we'll put so the leg there, give him a little more momentum. Look like he's looking around as they move across. And let's get one more back here who's overlapping with this guy. We'll have him with a bent arm. Give him some of his stuff that he's lugging around. And we'll get his foot moving back there as he's walking in tune with this other guy, side by side. Okay, so with these fellows coming together now, and I'll pull in a little bit on that so just to make it a little more clear for people. Okay, so there's our four guys at the bottom. Here is our image as it moves across, panel 1, panel 2. Really roughly in right now. And then here's at least four guys. We'll put one more, and then that'll be enough, because I want to leave some space here, primarily, for, the final punchline, basically. It's like a punchline. Okay, so this guy is going to be arched back, arm up, gun forward. Why he has to raise his gun for them to go to a burger store, I don't know. It might be a hostile environment, but they're on patrol, that's why. So we'll have him checking the road ahead is clear, I guess. The point man, it's a guy up front. Okay, so there's a second arm. Okay, so here's our guys. Now, what I meant by cutting out with the gesso is I'm going to come into these various spaces throughout the the composition as we put it down. And so what I'm doing here is some of these characters that we've been drawing in, I'm taking this opaque, which basically it could be gesso, it could be whatever else, and I'm pushing back some of these elements that we put in with these different papers that are down there, and dropping those back. I'm leaving them in the body for now, but the surface that's underneath, we control how much of that is visible for, within our page, our illustration, our composition. So, we can take it out, bring it forward, push it back as much as we like. See, these guys have got musical notes peeking through. So we're just pushing that back a little bit. You can still see it within their body. Here's that piece of that green paper now. So we're moving across all these different additional surfaces that the image is placed over. And pulling our image away from them. There we go. And so hopefully that helps the viewers and you understand the composition a little more clearly. Run that line straight across. There we go. Okay, so there's our guys moving through the space. Now I can come up here, and even though I've done these washes, I can still come through and pull up just a light little brushing of white over some of these different values so that it makes this more clearly defined, right? And I'm doing the same over here on this side, even though that there's not any different medium there, or a different surface medium there. And I'm going to pull some of it out here. Now, because I'm using watercolor with the gesso, and I'm working fairly quickly, one medium into another, it pulls the color up, and so it'll make lighter tones or pastel, little softening tints of the pre-existing colors laid down, and that's fine. Again, I'm not too worried about everything being perfect. I'm just trying to tell a fun story using visual elements of words and pictures together. Okay, so we've got this, again, this random paper poking through. So we'll try to put that down a little bit. Put it in its face. There we go. So now we've got the basics, these three parts of, I'll bump the camera over just a little bit more. One more. Yeah, you can do it. There we go. So what we've got is the basics laid out for the majority of our composition in one go. And we're telling a bit of a narrative. We're utilizing these characters of these soldiers, these enlisted men, talking about what their favorite meal was. And then there's a recognition that, hey, there's a place nearby that we can go to. Let's go on patrol, boys, or whatever he says. And here they are, fully armed, making their way towards McDonald's. So, a bit of a silly approach, but it's just the story idea points as I've got them figured out now. I tend to change things. I don't work from scripts because well, it's just an immediate action of creativity, right? But it just keeps the thing flowing, and it just keeps it moving, and it lets you find opportunities and avenues, lets you structure your story along the way. I'm not saying that the other way of approaching it is wrong. It just doesn't work for me. I tend to really enjoy being on the fly, trying to find new stories or new interpretations of mundane things, even, and making them interesting. So we're applying some of those ideas to this and making a go of it. Now, the illustration is primarily in this umber tone, but we want to pull some of that out. We want to build that up a little bit. How you doing, Marsh? Welcome aboard, man. How's things? How's your new house? Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of this accent. Now, remember, I've got gesso running right up to these surfaces, right up to the edge of these helmets and whatnot that's through here. And if there's gesso getting on my pencil, or I'm cutting into the application or the medium, that's fine. It's I'm not overly worked up about that. We're going to have a lot more fun just pursuing our marks and developing up our storytelling as best we can. So, worried about that more than I'm worried about the polish, right? Things are great. This page is looking nice. Thanks, bud. Appreciate that. It's nice. Okay, so we've got this one who's cut in a little bit. Let's give him his microphone. And I'll do things like in this page here, in this one, I cut a red line around our character in the foreground. And the reason that I did that is to really pull him out from that background. This is sort of what this black line is doing here and now. It's not a perfect line. It's not connected. There's a gap there. There's a gap there. I'm not worried about it relining the whole thing, because I'm just looking for those emphasis points, and the other applications and material that I put down on this are going to pull that line together, because that's how our eyes work, is that the human eye will pull these elements together. This is really gesticulative, and yet at the same time, you've seen clouds. You've got the blue, you've got the green down here of the grass. You imagine clouds, because your brain looks for patterns and puts those things together. So we're doing a little bit more of that. We're playing on that a little bit more here. Okay, so here's this person, and it's just light outline. Just pulling these guys off of one another and the background. Not too elaborate. Versus, are you using charcoal or China marker or something? This is a black pencil crayon that I'm using here, and nice soft lead, but I'm working it into wet watercolor and gesso and matte medium, and not while I'm following the contours of lines that I've already put down, I'm not following it perfectly. It's not like it's a finished inking application where I'm trying to replicate the pencils of the illustrator as best as I can and embellish those with ink lines. No, this is just enhancing pieces of what's going on. different illustrations so that we can bring it all together. Okay, so here is a more clear and ready breakdown of these different parts of our characters. Now, I'm going to go back into the palette, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to access these yellows and this Prussian blue. So there's the ochre, a bunch of that built up. And I got this Prussian blue that's over here. So now I'm putting together this more rich green. And I'm going to pick and choose some shadow points in the composition, give a little more form to our soldier guy with the color. Okay, and then we've got some shadow under this arm, shadow over here, doo-dah, doo-dah. Marcia's cool. Are you doing Janet's scavenger hunt? No, I'm not doing the scavenger hunt right now, and it's because I've got a couple of things going on. But I appreciate you asking, Marcia. It's just it's a lot of fun for those that are interested. Check out Janet's scavenger hunt. It looks like a lot of fun, and I was very interested in doing it, but unfortunately, I got some stuff that's prioritizing my time. At the end of the day, if you're doing stuff for other folks, that comes first. Trying to finish a bunch of commissions. I got a big painting of a motorcycle that I'm doing for one of my patrons that is almost done, and pretty pleased with it, you know. Okay, so you can see how these guys are becoming a little more defined now. And, you know, we're going to continue that over into the next part, the next panel. We can emphasize some of these lines here as well. Not too precious about it all. Just trying to get... See, there's musical notes in this guy's shoulder here. I'm just trying to get this unify. We're trying to unify the composition. Tie in these different elements. Quick and dirty like. He says, hey, Marsh, are you doing the scavenger hunt? There we go. Pretty fast and dirty this way, but you know, it comes together. And then we'll do a little wash over these guys. So because it's a pencil crayon, I'm not worried about bleeding around the image right here. It's a good pencil crayon that's holding its shape against, you know, brushing over it vigorously with water. So you can see the different tone with the black pencil as opposed to the brown pencil drawing area. But we'll figure this out in just a moment. Yeah, I'm pretty good with that. So here's bringing up some of the structure of our story. Here are our guys. Hey, what's your favorite meal? Blah, blah, blah. You know, hey, let's go get some of it. There's a place nearby that has it. So here our guys are on patrol. Oh, I almost drank my paint water, folks. I've had a long-standing rule of not having my drinking cup anywhere in relation to the placement of my paint containers or paint water container, because the last thing in the world I need to be doing is drinking any more of that. Okay, so there we go. We got some things happening now. You can see things start to tie together. Some of the pushing back of these elements that are within the surface, and for the composition to start pulling itself up off of the surface. And so this is what I do an awful lot in my paintings and drawings. Even in, I've got a 4 foot by 8 foot painting over here in the studio wall of the 3 of the kids, and there's tape under the surface of that thing. So you gotta have fun, folks. Okay, so I can do a couple things now. I can jump in some pencil, like some colored pencil applications, start building up some of these values, and add a few more lines of interest to the composition, and start to round this together a little tighter, you know, and just build up on this just a tiny bit more. You know, that's one avenue that I can focus on, or I can jump in here. Hold on a second. Let me take off my jacket. What are we at? 127. We're doing all right. I'm overheating is what it is here. Okay. So I'm going to do with this Zorn palette, okay, I'm going to clean it up just a little bit. Take off some of this excess mixed color. Now, I've got some water on the brush. I'm accessing this yellow, kind of a canary yellow, and this vermilion color. Okay, so I'm pulling from both of those, and I'm blending them together. A little more water, blending these guys together in the center. Now, if I want to diffuse this down, I can do it with 2 ways. I can do it with the water, or I can take some of the white that I have over here and throw that in there. And you can see, because of the type of colors that I'm using, this vermilion and this soft yellow pull to, oops, I'm so sorry. That's not good. So the yellow, the vermilion, and a little touch of that white puts together some really interesting, you know, Caucasian flesh tones. And so we're going to start pushing these through the faces. And then I'm going to come back in a second. I'm going to pull some of this back out. You know, there's some of these raised cheek areas, like over here. You know, we can put some white down. Marsh says he's probably not doing the scavenger hunt, but he's tempted. Yeah, it's very tempting. It's just time management, right? Sometimes that time management gets in the road. Being one of them responsible types. Well, that'll learn you up. So, fast and dirty application here, because we're going to do so much more with that, but we're just getting down. This is really, all these base colors and base hits of value is really just more of a foundation approach to it. It's more of a basic, here's where we're starting. So there's an angle for the camera placement. So here's our first 3 panels starting to come together, and good stuff. This is a Rowan Red, Rouge Rojan. Anyways, so I'm going to come in here, and whether the watercolor is dried yet or not, I don't care. And I'm going to hit some of these deeper points. Just give a little bit of something into these faces and start putting those together a little bit more. Roll. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. Whoops. That's more flat. And I pitched it again. Okay. So there we go. There we are. And I'll just bump that over with the control. Other way. We're learning. There we are. Okay, so, all right, so I'm just taking this red and hitting some key parts of the face. And so as I go over certain areas where you really couldn't see some of the drawing before because of the blend between the background surface and what I put down on top of the illustration, you can see it start to come out now. And I'll come back in here with some more watercolors and add some more flesh to them. You know, emphasizing the lighter and the darker parts. But what we're really doing right now is pulling together the overall image. And here's our two guys. So this is, I tend to go back and forth between putting things down and pulling things up. And what I mean by that is I'll put down some, you know, some value, some darkening of the light surface. And then I'll come back in often and I'll pull some of that back up like so. And because this is a gesso on top of watercolor and pencil crayon, well, it's picking up some of that value and softening the application of the white. So we're starting to get a little range going on in these Caucasian flesh tones that we're putting down. Simultaneously, we're pushing back some of this textural information that was in the different papers that we've put down and cleaning up these surfaces in places that we want it to be cleaned up, right? It doesn't have to be cleaned up everywhere, but we want to put certain little what nows throughout the piece. Just that little bits of interesting information that ties it together. So we're doing the same thing. Little emphasis points on these guys' faces. It's a little basic and haphazard when you're first applying it down, but then you start to clean up the edges and we're going to visit another one of our sons tonight at his new place. He and his friends have got a house, and three of them have been moving stuff together and bringing all their things together and to their gentleman's home. And Lori just texted me to say that she bought some housewarming cookies for the boys. I say boys. These guys are almost 30. That's my oldest son. But we still call them the boys. All right, so just making some marks and giving some more interesting lines and shapes and contrasting colors and more clearly defining things as we go. So that's really how I approach any of the storytelling that I do in these different mediums. It's an application of light and dark and the interplay between the two. And it was a tutorial from a fellow named Baron Story, who taught at the Pratt Institute and the California Institute of Art. And I happened to come across his class notes in a publication from Vanguard Press. And one of the things he talks about is the legitimacy of adding depth to your compositions and really pushing along your composition through applications of positive and negative values. And it really sort of stuck with me. It really resonated with me when I read that. Marcia's asking, do you enjoy using the Zorn palette? Well, yes and no. This is just, I have to have limitations. I have to sort of say to myself, okay, we're going to use these materials, and we're going to apply this process, this approach to this piece. And I have to do that because I will just keep grabbing everything that's relatively close to me and throwing that into the wheel. And so having a Zorn palette to start off with this little acrylic set that I got from one of the kids, watercolor set, 2 watercolors, is a way to say to myself, okay, just stick to these basic colors and don't try to put every color of the rainbow. But I do tend to utilize a more classic, when I'm working in paint, I do tend to utilize more, classic colors, more subdued values and yet really rich values, as opposed to the direct key pinpointed colors that people can buy tubes of for everything under the sun, so that they literally don't have to mix pigment together at all. Well, I like mixing. I like making a mess. So, okay, so just like sort of drawing this composition together, only utilizing these 3 colors, this sienna, this umber, and this, well, it says Rome, but it's clearly a sienna. And the umber and the black is all I've been utilizing to draw this. Marcia mentioned earlier a China marker. This is a China marker. It's one of these things where you pull the string and you take the paper off, you serrate it, and you've revealed more of the wax. But it's just pretty much wax in a pencil form. And I have this in a number of colors, and I've done some drawings using just the wax, the China markers as well. But I'm going to jump in here now with a little bit of red, and maybe we got some blue here. What are you? Orchid purple? This is just pencils I'm finding nearby, and they're getting voluntold into the picture. Here's sky blue light. Okay, that's another light. That's okay. So let's start jumping in here with some of these. Maybe, do I have, what else do I got? This random tube. That's just color erase pencils. I could also apply some ballpoint pens into this. I can also apply some, ink into it, or some nice, really nice clean line markers into it, and give like the Fudenosuke pens that I talk about, and give a really nice flourish line to it. But I think that I'm going to continue on, and these these similar approaches and just start pulling. See, there's marker in that. And but I'm going to keep to this similar approach and just start pulling it together with value, which takes a little bit longer. Marsh says, I see very few people using China markers, but I have them and want to use them more. You have many colors of them. That's great. Yeah, they're fun, but I think that what they really work well at, and that is emphasis points, like just a solid belt of green. You know, just one little dab of that, and it really punches that value in there. And that, coupled with the fact that, you know, their application is similar to pencil crayons, but really you're working with crayons. I like them a lot. They're a fun medium to use. I think that what I want to do with this, though, is to play with some color. Let's see. It's a fun set of brushes that the kids got me. I have crooked hands, and so because of that, these little grip bits of business on here really assist me in holding on to a thin brush, and I like that. So, okay, so back into my palette, pulling some of this yellow, pulling some of this vermilion, right, and load that up a little bit. And so now, as I come through here, and with this brush, and I start coming in and putting some marks down, it jumps it up a little bit more, and it's just because it's a second application and a little more opaque on the surface, but a slightly darker value. But it just gives us a little something more in that face that we're putting down here. A little retrospective for a guy thinking about his favorite Happy Meal. I'm pulling up some green and throwing some of that into the skin here. That's the contrast of the green and red working with each other to push a shadow. Get some of that into the helmet here. But by mixing this green into, which is an already mixed value for us off this palette, just pushes the colors just a little bit more. Gives it a little more depth. Do the same thing here. Am I missing stuff? No, we're all good. What are we at now? An hour 43. I got a couple more minutes. I can keep going. And then I've got some stuff to do before we go and see these things take place. So. Okay, so now we've got some more of these smaller images. I'm going to build those up, and I'm going to come back in, hit little points of white gesso and define some of these features a little bit more. And, and I'm going to throw some of this, push the vermilion in this value, and then throw that into some of this uniform, just to give it a little more interest. Put a little bit of tinting here. A little more something to do for the eye. It's funny when you go over it with the green, even though I've been drawing with this brown, it really pulls that line art, up as a red. gotta go jump back into these guys again. Okay, so we've got the start of our whole thing. Now let's just do this. Let's just clean this up before. Okay, now with this composition, I've got your panel 1. Let's see if this is scrap of paper I can use. No, I've got a. Oh, what are you reading from? Here's a piece of paper we can use. So I've got in this drawing that we're doing, we've got our first panel, we've got our second panel, we've got our third panel marching across the two of them, or a little overlapping, right? And then, so if we were to do sort of lines to delineate the panels, they would cut in through these characters. It'd be kind of making a little more interesting composition going for us. So as our guys are moving across, now if I want to push the viewer's eye, what I can do is, in this last panel, because what I really want you to do is go A, B, C, D. That's what I want your eye to do. So whatever I put here, okay, is our characters having their sandwiches, okay? So that's what is going to be happening down here in this lower image. And this I can extend this image out a little bit so that it really is just more people having their things to eat and so on and so forth. But this really doesn't matter overall, because I'm going to diffuse these values so that it pushes them way back, and draw your line of focus to here so that our eye goes there, 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 there. So that's the intention with this approach to the narrative, and how I'm breaking up this page and having this course of action with these characters, so that they talk about what's your favorite thing, your favorite happy meal. Oh, my favorite happy meal is this. Let's say we go get one, we'll call it a patrol. Off they go to the burger place and have the burgers of their dreams, or their remembrance of their youth. So it's fun. It takes us along, it moves us through the piece, and gets us to where we want to go. I'll get this finished off tonight. I might just jump on tonight and stream while I do it. We'll see. But I think I might do that. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be able to have a stream tomorrow. I need to go to the next city over and help my mom-in-law out. And so I'm not entirely sure if I'll get back at 2 o'clock, but it might be a little bit later. But you know, this is a lot of fun. I stepped away, trying different mediums and trying different things, and having this subdued application to really monkeying with the surface and using all kinds of stuff in conjunction with one another. Because I just wanted to, you know, play up on doing some ink stuff, and I just wanted to play up on doing some straight on pencil crayon drawing or pencil graphite drawing, and a little more traditional applications. And those things are hard to do when you have these modified surfaces, because they really do interfere with those applications in some ways. So yeah, I'm going to keep going on and exploring and trying to bring that fusion back together again. It's a way that I've worked for a long time, but I've been trying all kinds of different applications of storytelling, and I've been trying all kinds of different applications of medium in the course of storytelling, just for the variety and just for the exploration of it. But I work so fast this way, and there's such a sense of fulfillment of the abstract kind of application to the surface. And as you go farther and farther along in building and playing and pushing, you really do still get to that end game, that end point, sometimes it's the journey and not the destination. So I hope this has been interesting to people. I hope that there might be some ideas or some things here that people are pulling out of this and going, hey, I'm going to do that. Telling short stories and limit yourself contextually in a narrative, in a working space, a limited space for you to structure that narrative, a limit on your palette, the materials that you use, the time you have. All of these things are interesting because they can be beneficial and they can do harm. And what I mean by doing harm is that sometimes people panic to meet these objectives, and that's completely unnecessary. Your work in your play is your time, and finding enjoyment in it and finding fulfillment in that is, I think, should be paramount. More so than you're worried about hitting some benchmarks or keeping up with Joneses or trying to rush yourself along to meet these objectives. So have fun, right? Have fun, try different things. There's no such thing as a copyright on gessoing paper down. Have some fun doing it, because however you do it is not going to be the same way I do. Whatever you come up with from it is not going to be the same thing that I do. We're all unique, we're all individual, and you've got interesting things to say. We're trying some of these little tools and tricks. So do so. Optimally, I'll be here at 2 p.m. tomorrow, but if not, I might be a little bit later, and I'll apologize for that now. But I should see you tomorrow. Okay? Bye for now.